Welcome to episode 14 of the Hike Files podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Zitzelman. What's going on? Figured this week I was going to do something a little bit different. I'm out on the Allegheny Front Trail in central Pennsylvania, and I figured I'd bring you this podcast right from the trail. The Allegheny Front Trail is a 42-mile backpacking loop in central Pennsylvania, just outside of Snowshoe, Pennsylvania. That's a cool name, isn't it? And from what I've read, this is the most recent addition to the backpacking trails in Pennsylvania, and we've got no shortage of those. Some of my favorite trails here in this state are these big loops. And so far, I'm about almost 3 miles in right now. So far, this has been no exception. As you're listening to this podcast, you're going to have to forgive the neighbors. They're kind of loud. This is yet another backpacking loop that calls the Moshannon State Forest its home. And at some point, maybe on tomorrow or on day 3, I'm going to pass through the Black Moshannon State Park. I've been there before, and I may have actually walked on part of this trail when I was there. It was a few years ago. I don't really remember. But it will be pretty cool and a good learning experience. If you're new to backpacking or hiking, don't be afraid that you're going to make a mistake. It happens to everybody, and I made one today. I got here, it's about 2.5 hour drive. I got out here and I was in such a hurry to go. I was at the car, I got everything loaded up, didn't really look at the map. I had it planned out which way I was going to go, and I thought I came in from the other direction. So I got on the trail and I started hiking. I was planning on going clockwise around the trail because that's kind of the way the guidebook lays it out. And then I started walking, thinking, keep hearing about this climb right out of the parking lot. Not a bad one, but there's a climb, and I just wasn't seeing it. So I looked at where it was on Maprika, and it turns out I was going the wrong direction. So, and since I got here a little bit later, I decided not to turn around and just continued this way. I pulled the guidebook out, which I brought with me. I've got a paper map. I got my map on the phone. But looking at the guidebook, even going this way, it's going to change my plan a little bit. But it is what it is. I'll make it work. It is gorgeous no matter which direction you're going. But that mistake is going to give me the opportunity to see the vistas off of the actual Allegheny Front on the third day when I have a little more time. And you might be wondering what the Allegheny Front is. And that is the name they give the leading edge of the Allegheny Mountains. As you're coming north in the state and you see the Alleghenies, they just kind of pop right up. And this trail goes right along that ridge, right along that escarpment, the edge of the mountains. And it makes for some pretty awesome views, so I'm told. I'm excited to see them. So it's going to be a little bit different for this episode. Instead of just sitting down and having a conversation to tell you, I'm going to be journaling this as I go for you. Like I said, I'm about just 3 miles in right now. The trail has been surprisingly smooth. Not a lot of rocks. Not like what I'm used to back in the Northeast. Oh, northeast part of Pennsylvania, that is. It's a big log. And it's been pretty flat. Now, this was what I was expecting to walk out on the last day. This would have been nice to cruise back to the car. But it is what it is. I'm going to get my head down, make some miles before I stop for lunch in a half hour or so, maybe an hour. Somewhere at that time, 12:30, I'm going to stop for lunch. I'm going to try to get to 5 miles before then. Let's see what the trail gives me. So far, I'm really liking this, even though I went the wrong direction. Really enjoying the trail so far. It has not been bad. There's been a few rocky spots and a couple spots where it's like a tree down here or there, but it looks like most of them have been cleared or there's workarounds. And the ones that are across the trail are pretty easy to get across. So they're not, the trail maintenance is actually really good. Well marked so far. And the map is pretty accurate to what I was expecting as far as the elevation gains. It's not as swampy as I was expecting it to be. We got a pretty decent amount of rain, and out here was getting hammered over the weekend. It is chilly though. I think it's still in the 40s. I didn't turn on my thermo drop yet. Let's see what that says. That says it's 55. Feels cooler than that. Last time I updated you was still pretty early in the day. It's now 11 p.m. In the tent. I've already slept for a couple hours. I made it 13 and a half miles. My impressions of the trail so far, really well maintained. There's a few spots where there's some trees down, but they look like they've just come down recently. Nothing really crazy. A few rocky spots, but nothing really bad. Where I am right now, where I wound up camping, is on the northern section of the trail along Moshannon Creek, up off it pretty far by Potter Run. Moshannon Creek, you don't want to get water from. It's called, they call it Red Moshannon or Red Mo, and you can see it in the water. It's really red. It's been damaged from mining and industry in the area, and the water's not good quality. So I brought my guidebook with me. That's the Allegheny Front Trail guidebook, or guide, I think it's called. I got it here somewhere, by Ben Kramer, and he does a really good job. Here it's really appreciated because of that Red Moshannon, but all the water sources he kind of marks as acceptable, questionable, dependable, like anything like that. Potter Creek is a decent water source, so I decided to stay here. The next set of campsites is another 2 miles down the trail, and I wasn't planning on going any far as running out of daylight. This is, by that guidebook, mile 28.1, and if you're planning on camping here, at least right this second, there's one campsite that I could find. It's right along the trail, and the only spot to put a tent, there's a giant tree right next to it that is in the process of disintegrating, and I wasn't going to set up by that, especially with the amount of fresh trees I saw down. I think they just all got all these rotten trees. Anything that was rotten got saturated with water the past couple weeks, all the rain we've had, and just starting to come down. So I didn't want to set up next to it. So I went back up in the woods and just found a spot flat enough to put my tent, and that's it. Other than that, though, it's been a really enjoyable trail. I'm in good position to not have to go too crazy in the next 2 days. I can kind of take my time and just do what I need to do and really enjoy it. I'm gonna nod back off to sleep here and get started on day 2. Morning update for you. It is morning of day 2. Beautiful section of forest here. Got down to about 42 last night. Slept pretty comfortable, aside from my mattress losing more air than I expected it to. I hope it doesn't have a hole in it, so I still got one more night to go, but I'll muddle through. Gonna try to get somewhere between 14 and 17 today. I've got 3 extra hours I didn't have yesterday because I'm starting on the trail, so that shouldn't be bad. I'm gonna get back to the hiking, and I will be back with another update in a little while. Update for, well, the end of day 2. So I did about 14 and a half miles, and that first probably 6 miles was the hardest. So half my day was difficult. It wasn't like really challenging, but the rocks were slippery, and there's a lot of leaves on the rocks, and there's just a lot of like little climbs up and then down and up and then down. So I kept on slipping and sliding, and there was a few down trees in that section too that slowed me down. Nothing crazy, but enough just to make it slow. But once I got to 6 Mile Run, it was You know, a couple climbs, but nothing crazy. Beautiful forest, absolutely beautiful. I've got an awesome campsite tonight. It's an actual campsite. I got a fire pit. I got a spot to put my tent, which is beneficial. Yeah, I'd have to say that I'm really enjoying this trail. It's really nice. I've got about 14 miles left for tomorrow. And as long as I don't run into anything like I hit this morning, in that 6 miles, I should be all right. I know I've got some climbs, but I also know there's a decent section that's got a boardwalk in it. So I should be pretty fast through there. So I am cooking my dinner. I'm going to eat that, and I'll talk to you in my next update. Day 3 update. It is, let's see, 7:44. Been on the trail for a little bit, about 45 minutes. Cruising along nicely. Campsite I had last night was awesome. I got there nice and early, still made the miles I want to make, and it was just a great campsite. There's all kinds of wildlife. I heard owls and coyotes. There's a fox that was running around the area. You can hear him yelping. I heard porcupines. There was tree frogs or something. I heard right by the water. It's a little late in the season for tree frogs, but that's the only thing I think they were. It could have been some kind of nocturnal bird, but I don't know what would be making that much noise. It wasn't whippoorwills, I know that. But got up early, and something I learned, I probably need to keep my headlamp charged, my new headlamp. It doesn't seem to have the battery life of my old one, although I did use it quite a bit yesterday, the past 2 days, so maybe that had a lot to do with it. But it also doesn't have any warning when the battery dies. It just shuts off. I was in the middle of packing down this morning when my headlamp went off. But it's all good. I was able to make do between my phone, and as that headlamp's charging, the red lights activate to show you that's charging, and it was just enough light to be able to pack down, and it was fine. Give me a minute to eat my breakfast. So I am now moving. This is day 3 here on the Allegheny Front Trail, and I will be wrapping up today. I have about 14 miles to do for the day, but I'm excited to go see those vistas right at the end. I am doing this in reverse. Roller skating on acorns. I am doing this reverse of what the guidebook and the way I think it's kind of designed. But I'm liking it. So far, I think this is a pretty good way to do it. I guess we'll see when I get to the end. I know I've got a big climb. So I'm going to continue to hike, and I will give you an update in a little while. So about 8.5 miles in, just under 8.45. I've been going nonstop, and it's time to take a break. Slow down a little bit on that last section, a little. But I know I've got a big climb coming up. So I found this campsite. Got the little creek here. I think this is Smay Creek, or that's Smay Road. I don't know. Something like that. There's another trail here somewhere. But I'm going to stop this creek and then just relax for a minute. Take a load off and then get ready, because once I get out of here, I'm going to climb up. I got to get back up to where the car is. So I got to climb up on the ridge and I get those views. So I got about 5.5 miles to go. And it's going to be a tough 5.5 miles, I believe. Maybe it won't be as bad as I think, but I'm preparing for the worst. So I passed my first people on the trail finally. I passed that guy yesterday with his dog, but I was on the road because it was a section of road hiking. He was walking his dog. So you're the first people I've seen hiking at 40 miles out of 42. Or somewhere, I don't know, it might be. I think my GPS is a little bit off because I've diverted a little, so I may have 2.5 miles to go yet still. I'm trying not to dwell too much on what I got left. There is a little bit of a difference in the trail compared to the map. So if you're out here, it's not huge, but just past this vista, if you're going clockwise, you get to a spot where the trail turns left and drops down it's like an old forest road. It goes down into the ravine and then back up. It wasn't horrible, but the map shows it going straight across, like around the top of the ravine. And it must have got hit by that windstorm or something, because it's been rerouted for a long time. It's just not on the map. I don't think it really adds much, maybe a tenth or two, but it is an extra climb if you're not expecting that. But what's one more climb? At this point, it doesn't matter. Final update from the trail. I am back to the car, 41.5 miles completed. At least that's the trail mileage. I haven't calculated what my actual mileage was. It might be a little bit over that because of little side trips I took here and there. And when I stop for lunch and breaks, I don't shut my GPS off, so it might meander a little bit, but seemed pretty accurate. Some trail notes. Maintenance on the trail, pretty good. There are some recently down trees, and some older trees that were down, but none of them caused a huge issue. There might have been one or two that took a second to figure out how to get around, but all in all, not too bad. The official DCNR map, fairly accurate, but there are some spots that aren't 100% on, so just be aware of that. It seems like near the vistas, as you're heading, if you're going clockwise, like behind me, straight back where the trail comes out, when you go down there, that's where all the vistas are along the front. The mapping is a little bit squirrely in there. Doesn't change the mileage at all, but it does change the elevation you'd expect and where you'd expect to go. Nothing major though. It all works out in the end. This is a great trail. I really enjoyed myself. It's, even when you're not around vistas, it's gorgeous. The section through Black Moshannon State Park, gorgeous this morning. I would break it down at we'll say 42 miles. It's 41.5. We'll say 42 miles to make it easy. It's 10 miles of rugged, rocky terrain sporadically, like the back section near Moshannon, the section here near the vistas. Maybe 10 miles of trail. Maybe 10 miles, maybe 8 to 10 miles. The rest of it is just cruise. The information on the official map says expect 5 to 6 days to complete this. That seems really slow for what you get on a trail. Maybe it's just me. 3 days. 3 days was good. 4 days would be a nice relaxed hike. 5 days, maybe you could take a 0 in the state park. I don't know. 6 days, maybe doing it twice. Couldn't tell you. It seemed easier than what they make it out to be. And misleading on the map is that the elevation lines on the topographic elevation lines are in 20-foot intervals. I'm used to 100-foot intervals. So I was seeing some of these climbs. I'm like, oh my God, that's really steep. And then I looked at closer and I was like, oh, it's steep, but it's short. So all in all, this is a really good trip, really fun hike. Absolutely suggest if you're a backpacker and you're near PA that you put this on your list and come out and check it out. Either way, I kind of like the counterclockwise because you get the payoff of the vistas at the end. If you don't know which way to do it, clockwise or counterclockwise, if you want the payoff of the vistas at the end, if you want all that hard work and you want those vistas at the end, that's the way to do it. There's not a lot of vistas on the rest of the trail. There's some spots you can see things. There's a lot of beautiful forest, some really nice stuff. But if you're here for the vistas and you want that to be the payoff, I'd say do that last. If you want the easier last day, then go clockwise. Because the spots from the vistas back to the car, if you're doing it counterclockwise, it's not hard. It's just harder than anything you've seen all day, pretty much. There's a lot of rocks. I know this is a little bit of a different podcast, doing it on the trail. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, let me know, and I'll do more of these when I'm out. That's going to do it for me. I will talk to you next week in episode 15 of the Hike Files Podcast.